All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Monday, and we've got Monday issues today, as every Monday seems to have. But major storm last night completely tore apart my yard. I got tents blown everywhere that were covering landscaping materials, and it's going to be a cleanup day. But we'd like to get started here. Eric will be back here later this week, but we're going to do a little receiver review. Trying to pull all my information off my other laptop this morning. It's been a little difficult, so I apologize for the delay. But anyway, we've got unbiased PFF ranking reviews today. We're going to be talking about the receivers in the NFC North. Lions news and rumors right off the get. Jared Goff gets a little respect for once. And Bradrick Martin, are you guys expecting a little bit of a breakout season? I'm starting to smell it a little bit. I think that Bradrick Martin might have a much better season than anticipated, especially if DJ Reader is held out at all early in the season. So let's get it kicked off here. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.
Grit. All right. Hey, we're back, and good morning. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. July 15th, 8:21 a.m. Late start today, but let's kick it off. We've got some opposing views this morning about Jared Goff, and immediately he gets a little bit of some respect, right? He gets a crack at the NFL's top 10 quarterbacks of 2024. I'm going to shout out this article by Jeremy Reisman. So Monday morning review this morning on your latest Detroit Lions news and rumors. So he goes on to say here that ESPN is continuing their list of the top 10 players at each position. You know that I like to do top 11. I like to be a little bit different. We'll be kicking that off here in a couple of weeks. But as voted by NFL executives, coaches, and scouts, so I think that that's the superlative that we need to take into consideration here. It's not just writers. It's not just, hey, this is what I think they are. This is coming from the executives, the coaches, and the scouts. So on Monday, they dropped the quarterback list, and it features the Detroit Lions quarterback, Jared Goff, cracking the top 10 for the first time since its inception being this list since 2020. He placed 9th on the list this year, ahead of some of the other quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins. Well-deserved that he is above all of those quarterbacks. Well-deserved. But not only had Goff never made the list before, but he was only an honorable mention a single time in the previous 4 seasons, or the previous 4 years. Here's what ESPN author Jeremy Fowler wrote in 2023. Goff rarely got a single vote over the past 3 seasons. But this year, he appeared on nearly 25% of the ballots after leading Detroit to 9 wins, thanks in part to a 29-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Obviously, after helping the Lions to get to the NFC Championship last season, the narrative on Goff has completely shifted, which it should. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, because he's in Detroit and he was shipped off to Detroit, I mean, you had interfighting with fans. I mean, you had fans that were thinking that Hendon Hooker should start this year after leading them to the NFC title game. There's not one thing that Goff did really throughout last season that really put a game in harm's way, being able to win the game. Goff did way more positive than he did negative, and he has been the last 2 seasons. Yeah, they're going to have a rough game from, time to time. You're going to have a couple of rough quarters. You could have a couple of bad weeks back to back, but I think that it's more, of the team having issues as opposed to just one player. Now, does that mean that, Goff isn't banged up from week to week, or maybe he's sick from week to week, whatever, things happen throughout the season. You're allowed to have a bad game or two, as long as it doesn't hinder the entire season or happen at the absolute worst time. I think that Goff has really shifted not only the momentum for himself, but for the team, and has been an extremely big reason why the Lions are where they are today. Lastly here, this article goes on to say that, or at least a quote here by an anonymous NFL coordinator, he's the best in the NFL at throwing into zone coverage windows. Firmly agree with that. I've shown young quarterbacks tape of him and how he throws with anticipation. That's what I love about this offense. It's a timing offense. You're anticipating what's going to happen. You have to know that your receiver's going to be there, that you're on the same, wavelength, that, Amon-Ra knows that when he's cutting across the middle, well, he's not going to stop and go back and go to the inside. But if he does, Goff knows that he's going to do that. How do they know? I don't know. I guess it's just time on task, learning each other and their abilities on the field and what makes the most sense. If they see something within the defense and it makes more sense to cut and go back versus cut and go up, somehow they just know what each other's thinking. And Goff throws with great anticipation, and that's why these timing routes work so well in this offense of Ben Johnson. Goes on to say here that he used to seem nervous in the pocket, but now he's cool in there. I don't think that he has the pressure on him like he did in L.A. Detroit has embraced him, and he's responded. So let's see who's in this top 10. That's what I wanted to see. Let me pull it up here. So here's your top 10. And so this is where we have the differing of opinions, or we get a little bit of shadiness, in my opinion, on what's really going on. Where is it? Where did it go? Apparently I've got to log in. All right, here we go. So in the top 10, of course, you got number 1, you've got Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Joe Burrow, which makes no sense to me. And the dude's been injured, hasn't played. How could you put him in the top 10? These lists need to be based off of last season, in my opinion. I get it. You got a plethora of people voting on this, but this is the what have you done for me lately league. What has Joe Burrow done lately? Nothing. So how does he crack the top 10? Doesn't make any sense to me. Number 3, you have Josh Allen. I mean, the guy is a great quarterback. Again, if we're looking at what happened last season, and even if you take into consideration how some of these teams have gotten better versus, gotten worse, at least on paper, I don't know that I'd put Josh Allen at number 3. Matter of fact, I know I wouldn't. Number 4, you have Lamar Jackson. I'm sick of talking about Lamar Jackson, but this one boggles my mind. Number 5, Matthew Stafford. How does Matthew Stafford get a better placement than Jared Goff? Number 1, Jared Goff beat him, right? They're 1-1 against each other. I guess the final showdown is going to be week 1 this year. It could be Matthew Stafford's last season, or at least one of 2 last seasons where they may not be able to, be matched up again during the regular season. We'd only see him again in the playoffs. So this doesn't make any sense. Jared Goff gets placed behind Matthew Stafford. That just doesn't make sense to me. Number 6, you have Justin Herbert. Again, 0 cents here. 0 cents. I don't even think I need to explain that one. CJ Stroud, sure, I could see him in the top 10. Absolutely. The dude had a great rookie season, which very far and few between does that happen with rookie quarterbacks. We've talked about it numerous times on this channel that it's usually 2 to 3 seasons before a rookie first round pick does anything in the NFL. It's very rare that they do anything. This one, again, Aaron Rodgers, number 8. Come on. Are we being serious here? Like, the dude is 55 years old. He just got his AARP card in the mail, and he's coming off of an ACL, and he's ahead of Jared Goff. I mean, if he was totally healthy, firing on all cylinders, he didn't have a season last year. And even the season before, who beat him? Jared Goff. Who's continually beat the Packers? Jared Goff. So, come on, man. Are we serious? So there's still a lot of bias in this, but Jared Goff comes in at number 9, just behind Aaron Rodgers. So, man, I have a feeling there's going to be some fiery videos coming out today. So Jared Goff ranked behind Matthew Stafford. So I'm going to highlight an article here by John Macaroon, and that's because, well, he spoke to it. So Detroit Lions signal caller Jared Goff landed in the top 10, number 9, on ESPN's latest 2024 quarterback ranking. It was the first occasion the 29-year-old cracked the annual list. And Jeremy Fowler, as we mentioned a minute ago, explained that Jared Goff leads the NFL in fourth quarter and overtime QBR during the span. And his 18 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in the red zone last season was the league's best. Talking about number 5, that would have been Matthew Stafford, which I don't understand that. But anyway, I'm not real happy about the fact that Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers gets ranked above Jared Goff. Doesn't make any sense. Clearly, there's some bias here. But let's move on and let's talk about our chat this morning. So welcome in the chat. Appreciate you guys sticking around. And waiting for the show this morning. So Roger Chappis kicked us off this morning. We got Illini MCG, Michael Garrity, Roger Chappis, Tracy's in the house. We got Rick, Chef Talks Lions, Big Walt, Shane Smith, J Mommy, Brent DeWitt, Chip Bradshaw, Steve K, all in the house. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Let's do another quick shout out here to our sponsors. Make sure we get that done this morning. Sports Spider, you guys know I love Sports Spider. And the reason why I do is because Sports Spider gives you everything that you're looking for in the latest Detroit Lions news and rumors and NFL. The entire NFL's in there. I mean, you can find anything you want in sportspider.com. That's Sports Spider, SPYDER.com, where you get all of your sports in one place. You will find your favorite podcasts, local writers, and insiders updating in real time from all your major news sources. The site is packed with live news, articles, podcasts, and updates from every major sports team, including, but not limited to, the MMA, UFC, snowboarding, basketball, baseball. Everything is in there. I wouldn't even be surprised if they had cricket in there at Sports Spider. They do an excellent job over there. So if you're looking to get all of your sports in one place, please visit sportspider.com after the show. You control what's in your feed, and it's free to sign up. Next up, we've got Uper Lights. If you're interested in the fastest growing hobby of rock hounding, then you got to visit uperlights.com today. You'll find a full lineup of patented and certified long-wave UV flashlights. These certified nanometer UV flashlights come in multiple sizes, starting with the Mini, the C8, and even the fan-cooled 4-head Aurora flashlight. The thing is an absolute beast of a flashlight. Designed to aid you in finding Uper Lights, of course, and minerals and agates like never before. All supplies are on sale today, starting at just $20. Don't forget your limited Uper map at checkout. Discover the magic of glowing rocks today with Uper Lights, where your adventure begins. Check out uperlights.com after the show. All right, and let's get back into this here. Bradrick Martin. So next up here, Take a look at our roster this morning. Bradrick Martin, is he headed to a breakout season? Well, first, I would say he's going to have to earn some snaps, and that's going to be tough to do. This is a pretty thick defensive line, and I think Mekhi Wingo is going to shake up a few things here on this defensive line. At least that's my dark horse this year, one of, to really make some noise this year. I think that Mekhi Wingo has a lot of traits and abilities that the Lions were looking for. That's why they took him in the 6th round, and I'm sure that they were a little bit baffled themselves as to why Mekhi Wingo was still available. But in a season where we just don't know about Levi Onwuzurike, we just don't know what's going on with Josh Paschal, we just don't know what's going on with Bradrick Martin just yet. But the Detroit Lions obviously have invested into their second-year tackle, Bradrick Martin, and he's gone throughout this last offseason with doing a transformation of his body similar to what Ali McNeil, tried to do the season before. Cutting down the fat, obviously increasing your muscle mass. That's what he's tried to do. And I'll highlight this article here by by All Lions Fan Nation, Vito Churko, where he says, the Detroit Lions second-year defensive tackle Bradrick Martin has undergone an immense physical transformation this offseason. It's been part of a concerted effort by Martin, who suited up for just 3 games as a rookie, to get into better playing shape and on the field more often in 2024. Now, Martin, the Lions' second of 2 third-round picks in 2022, spent the bulk of his debut NFL season on the inactives list as a healthy scratch. Additionally, when he did play, he made a minimal impact. Very, very true. The games that I did watch, man, he was getting pushed around all over the place. Too high a pad level. He's got to get lower. He's too top heavy. So in fact, the Western Kentucky product logged just 3 total tackles and a 57.1 overall Pro Football Focus grade. The Lions are hopeful that Martin, who experienced more than his fair share of growing pains as a first-year pro, will make a bigger impact during his sophomore campaign. I want to throw this out there because there was a lot of issues last season with Isaiah Buggs that clearly we know now have all come to fruition, right? I mean, what's been in the news, the things that we read about Isaiah Buggs, it's more clear now as to why he wasn't a big part of the Lions' plan last year when he was on the team. He himself was also a healthy scratch. Listed as a sickness or whatever. So he was mentoring Bradrick Martin. So here's my question. You are a product, right, of the people around you, typically. They use the old adage, guilty by association, right? Well, in this case, I'm wondering, was Isaiah Buggs a hindrance to Bradrick Martin? Like, was he giving him bad vibes? Were they not, able to work together in a way that was more polished and fruitful? Maybe Bradrick Martin just didn't, like Isaiah Buggs. I don't know. I don't know what other word to use here other than maybe Bradrick Martin just wasn't getting enough from Isaiah Buggs as a mentor along the defensive line. Now, of course, you had Ali McNeil there too. I don't know how much time Ali McNeil put in with Bradrick Martin last year, but this season, we know this right away, that DJ Reader came in with a full plan for Bradrick Martin. He looked at all of his tape and brought everything to Bradrick Martin to say, hey, man, this is what we need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what I see, or however that conversation went. And Bradrick Martin mentioned this, and he said that how, impactful that is to have that sort of leadership around you. So I believe that this is going to be a big step up for Martin this year. I think with the DJ Reader, signing, I think that is going to be more impactful to the Lions than just what he is on the field. I think that whole room, Ali McNeil is going to elevate. Now, again, not just because of what's on the field, but because of the type of player DJ Reader is, the type of person he is, his ability, obviously, to put together a plan for these guys, not only to play separately, but also together. Things that they need to work on separately and together so that they can get better as a group. So I think that there's going to be an impactful second season for Bradrick Martin. Now, he may not get a ton of snaps again this year. I'm hoping he gets at least, 300. Like, I think that if he can get 300 snaps this year, that would be a great second season for him to get that sort of experience and to take the next step forward in his young career. But I do believe that you are a product of your coaching staff and your mentors. And if you don't have good ones, you're not going to be good. You only can learn so much on your own. There's only so much, that watching tape, by yourself is going to give you. You have to have someone break it down for you and give you the information that maybe you're not seeing. And that takes good coaching staff. That takes, we got Terrell Williams now. Obviously, that's a huge impact for this defensive line, and DJ Reader. So you guys let me know in the chat, do you think that Bradrick Martin was a product of Isaiah Buggs' BS last year? That maybe Isaiah Buggs was, his mind was just elsewhere, obviously wasn't performing at a high level, therefore the reason why he was not getting playing time. Maybe that kind of pulled, Martin's progress down, or what would have been progress for last season, down into the dumps. It's just a guess, hypothetical, but something I was thinking about over the weekend. And then when I saw this article come out, I'm like, I think I should mention that today. So that's it. Let's move on to our unbiased PFF rank reviews. Now, I hope this doesn't end up like the defensive line one, because I lost, a lot of stuff last night. Had to get everything back. I had the battery plugged in. My computer should have been on this morning, and I don't know why it was not. So what do you guys think here? Let me see what the chat's saying this morning. Rick says, we didn't need Bugs mentoring anyone. Spot on there, man. Spot on. Illini MCG. You guys talking about Cooper Kupp and Diggs this morning. All right. Chef Talks Lions. I also hope he can be a 300-pound Spartan, or hope he can be a 300. I'm not sure what that means. Tracy, it's PFF, so if we have to take that into account. Yeah, every day. Every day. Michael Garrity says, very possible, Will. Very possible. Tracy, it's very possible you got caught up in that attitude. Yeah, attitude is everything, man. You guys know how it is. If you're around, some people that are just Debbie Downers all the time, kind of puts you in a bad mood. You don't want to be in a bad mood. So you got to be around people that have positive energy, that try to see the glass half full, not always half empty. I can't stand negative energy. It's infectious, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I can't stand it. I don't want it infecting me. We all go through our own crap. So why have someone else's negative energy, spilling over into your life? It never makes for a good day. All right, so I'm going to kick this off with, I think we'll do the Vikings to start. I always like to end with the Lions. And I'm going to have to redo all my math, it looks like. So we'll start off with the Vikings. So this is a review of last year. The 2023 season for the Minnesota Vikings receivers started and ended emphatically with Justin Jefferson. Jefferson racked up 458 yards through Minnesota's first 3 games of the season. And he also closed the season with 392 yards in the Vikings' final 3 contests. Now, I think you guys know where the majority of those yards came from. What team did Justin Jefferson go up against in the last 3 weeks of last season? I don't need to tell you guys, do I? Yeah, smash that like button, Tracy says. You got to help us get this out this morning. It's a late scheduled show. Definitely appreciate all your guys' help. You guys have been doing a wonderful job. So much so that, look, our growth has been consistent. 20, 30 subscribers almost a day. That's been consistent. And a large part is due to you guys smashing that like button and helping us get our content out to more people. It just has to get into the YouTube algorithm, and they got to figure out, the rest from there. And just a simple like helps us do that. And even a comment after the show, that also helps us do that. After the show, I'm going to start putting a comment in every show, kind of like a question, and post it so that way you guys can have something to feed into. Let me wind back. I'll go back into the Vikings here in a second. So we were talking about, my feed must be off, really slow this morning. We were talking about the impact of negative energy. And Rick says, exactly, Will. That's why my social circle has shrank next to nothing. I'm in the same boat, man. I just work. If I'm not surrounded by, family, people in my household, very small circle outside, unless, we're doing activities, Lions games, all that type of stuff. That's where the circle grows. But yeah, got to keep it small. Especially as you get older, it seems like, you kind of just push out the riffraff, or people that may be just bringing you down. Steve K says positive energy takes more energy, or positivity takes more energy. That's true. It is true. That's actually a scientific fact. Joseph Campbell, let's see here. The Detroit Bama Boys, Brian Branch, Jameer Gibbs, J-Mo, and T. Arnold, a.k.a. Sub-Zero. Michael Garrity, share this as well. Yeah, appreciate that. Brent DeWitt says, roll Pride, not Roll Tide. Dude, that would be a great shirt. Roll Pride. Let me write that down. You know what? I think we might have to make that one. We'll make sure that we send Brent DeWitt one for free, though, with the idea. Roll Pride. I like that. All right, so let me get back into the Vikings here. So the 2023 season for the Vikings obviously started off with a bang and ended with a bang. Justin Jefferson amassed a ton of yards against the Detroit Lions at the end of the season. But despite, the prolific yardage by one of the sport's biggest stars, the Vikings were 0-6 in those games. Hamstring injury in Week 5 cost Jefferson the next 7 games, creating the need for others like rookie Jordan Addison, fourth-year Viking KJ Osborne, and veteran newcomer Brandon Powell to start producing, to do something. Addison had a stellar and historic debut season, honestly. And Osborne's number were in the same ballpark as the previous 2 seasons. Despite constant churn at the quarterback position after Kirk Cousins was lost to an an Achilles injury in Week 8. Powell posted career best in receptions, yards, and catches, earning first downs with 17 of his 29 receptions, moving the chains, and another moving the chains. I don't know what I wrote there. The thrilling score provided the game winner in Atlanta. I must have been talking about the Atlanta game in Week 9. Anyway, Minnesota's only comeback game of the season was against Atlanta. Powell was a big reason for that. Second-year pro Jalen Naylor was affected by multiple injuries this last season, a run of health hurdles that began in training camp. And then you had Tristan Jackson made it into the lineup in the first 7 games of his career and had an important catch on a 2-point conversion pass from Joshua Dobbs against the Falcons. Man, last season, watching Joshua Dobbs, I was like, oh boy, we let this guy go. Is he going to come back and bite us? He was playing pretty well. I know he was throwing a bunch of picks, but he was playing pretty well there for a minute. All right, so the highest of the highs for the Vikings last year. The Vikings were heavy home underdogs against the 49ers in Week 7, but a top-flight night by Minnesota's entire offense, even without Justin Jefferson, led to the Vikings beating the 49ers 22-17, which was one of just 2 conference losses suffered by the San Francisco 49ers last season. As we know, they finished with the number 1 seed. I mean, we almost handed them a critical loss in the NFC title game. But the fact that the Vikings beat them should have told us something, right? And they beat them in Week 7. Week 7. We should have beat them. Actually, we beat ourselves. I think we know that now. We beat ourselves in that game. So much like Jefferson and Moss, Addison introduced himself to the national stage with 7 catches for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a massive 60-yard score with 7 seconds remaining in the first half. Powell added 64 yards on 4 catches in that game. Osborne caught 5 passes for 47 yards in that game. And Jackson also added a 7-yard reception. So this game was crazy for them. Vikings receivers totaled 17 catches, 241 yards, and 22 targets, averaging 14.2 yards per reception. So, I mean, I don't think that it should go unnoticed here that their backup cast, right? The overall cast of the Vikings, pretty damn good. I mean, so beyond Justin Jefferson not being in the game, Like, they can put together a game. Like, these guys can play. So when I look at 2024, the Minnesota Vikings obviously have changed just a little bit, but their 2024 receiving core features a mix of elite talent, promising rookies, and reliable depth, which is something I'm hoping the Lions figure out this season. Here's an in-depth look at the key players and their prospects for the season. We're going to kick it right off with Justin Jefferson. Highest paid, what is he, the highest paid wide receiver in the game right now, I think. But 2023 stats, obviously he was impacted by injury, but the dude still put up 128 receptions. No, that's not right. Hold on. I don't think that's right anyway. Okay, Justin Jefferson, 68 catches, 1,074 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 10 games of last season. He continues to be the cornerstone, obviously, of the Vikings receiving core, coming off of another stellar season at times. I mean, he clearly showed that he's one of the best receivers in the NFL for a reason. This guy, let me get to the main screen here. This guy, I mean, missed several games, but the games that he comes back in, he completely blew the doors off of some teams, including the Detroit Lions. And that kind of stuff just can't happen. So in the beginning of the season, he had 192 yards. He had 150 yards in his first game, 159 in his second game, 149 in the third game. And then obviously, he kind of slowly disappeared after that. He went 85 yards in October 1st, 28 yards versus KC, 27 yards in December versus the Raiders, 84 versus the Bengals. And then he started lighting it up again, 141 against the Lions, 59 against Green Bay, and then capped off his best game of the year, 192 yards versus the Lions in the last game of the season, of the regular season. So I don't think it's any surprise that, the Vikings have a top wide receiver in the league on their team. The question is it going to be Sam Darnold throwing on the ball or J.J. McCarthy throwing on the ball? And I think that's the question that we've got to get answered through training camp here to kind of see, where is this group headed? Can the Minnesota Vikings be reliable with Sam Darnold? I would say that Sam Darnold's better than Joshua Dobbs. I mean, hands down, way better than Joshua Dobbs. Maybe not as mobile, but the dude has a rocket for an arm. I mean, he really does. So I think that if Darnold gets the nod as a starter, which that's where the Vikings have said they were going, at least into camp, that Darnold is going to be the starter, this team can still do some damage. So next up, we got Jordan Addison. Last season, he was a rookie. So had a phenomenal season for being a rookie. Let me pull up his stats here. So 70 receptions, 911 yards, 13 yards of reception, 10 TDs on the season. That is a phenomenal year for a rookie. If we had a rookie enter the Detroit Lions right now, and we were able to get 911 yards and 10 TDs out of that person, that would be a great start to 2024. Well, we don't have a rookie, but where I'm thinking is we need that to be Jameson Williams, and I'll get to all that. But that's the kind of numbers that we need to be seeing out of Jameson Williams. The fact that we haven't, and I mean, the Vikings are getting this out of Jordan Addison is crazy. So JMO's got to be able to do it. And I think that's why a lot of people are not emphatically thinking that JMO is the answer just yet. Let me go back here. All right. So rookie, the Vikings' first round pick in 2023 NFL draft, Jordan Addison brings excitement and potential to the receiving unit. Addison was highly productive in college, showcasing speed, agility, and excellent hands. As a rookie, his transition to the NFL will be closely watched, but his talent suggested that it could become a significant contributor again in 2024. If Addison can quickly adapt to the professional level, he may provide the Vikings with a dynamic second option, creating more opportunities for the entire offense. And then you move on to Brandon Powell. He's been around a minute. I believe he played for the Lions back in 2019-ish, somewhere around in that time frame. But 2023 stats, 28 receptions, only 240 yards on the season. Let me just double check this real quick. That is false. He had 29 receptions, 324 yards on the season, and 1 touchdown. So Brandon Powell adds depth and experience to the Vikings receiving core, known for his agility and ability to make plays in the open field. Powell can be a valuable asset in both the passing game and special teams. His role may be more limited compared to the top receivers, obviously, but his versatility allows him to contribute in various situations. Then you have Jalen Nailor. Jalen Nailor's an intriguing prospect to me. Now, he didn't have a crazy season last year. He got in 6 games, 3 receptions, 29 yards, 9.7 yards of reception, no TDs. So Jalen he's intriguing to me. As far as a depth piece, I think that this guy can break out. I really do. But he's going to be sitting behind, Addison. He's going to be sitting behind Jefferson, and even Brandon Powell to a degree. But with the loss of Oliver, I see that there's an opportunity here for Jalen Nailor to get some more time. Now, last season, if we were to take the best of Jalen Nailor, he's shown some flashes of potential. He's known for his speed and ability to stretch the field. He could become a deep threat opposite of Justin Jefferson if he's given more opportunities. His development in training camp and preseason will determine how much he can contribute in 2024. He really just needs to refine his skills, gain a little bit more trust from the coaching staff, and now he's going to have to build a reputation and relationship with either Darnold or J.J. McCarthy to get this season started. Struggling with my notes here. It's like super small. Next up, you have Trent Sherfield, pure backup piece, but last season he got a little bit more time based on Jefferson not being in the game for a large part of the season, but only 11 receptions. No, I'm sorry. That note was from Jalen Nailor. Man, I'm on the struggle bus today. So Trent Sherfield joining the Vikings this year, 11 receptions, 86 yards, 1 TD last season. He does have a mix of reliability and playmaking ability. Adding, to this Vikings receiving group, I think that with his experience on special teams and as a receiver, more than likely he's going to make this team solid depth piece overall. So what are we looking at for this squad right now? Jordan Addison is clearly the number 2, I believe, to start the season. Justin Jefferson is the number 1. Jalen Nailor should be able to work his way, into a more significant role this year. Overall on the roster, you have Tristan Jackson, Jordan Addison, Thayer Thomas, Ty James, Deshaun Jones, Trent Sherfield, Brandon Powell, Jalen Nailor, Malik Knowles, and Justin Jefferson. So overall, I have to combine some scores, right? We have to figure out which players we're going to use. And the goal is that you have to have more than 350 snaps to count in what are considered my unbiased PFF rankings overall. And in order to do that, we're going to have to use Jordan Addison. I don't know why I'm struggling with his name this morning. And Justin Jefferson had 549 last year. Brandon Powell actually had 406 snaps last year. So those are the 3 scores that I'm going to use. Number 1 overall, you have your number one receiver is Jefferson, right? He scored a 91.1 in PFF last year. And next to him, you're going to have Jordan Addison at 68.6. And then for your third receiver, so we're going to do number one, and then you're going to do your top three overall. For your third receiver, I've got to throw Brandon Powell in there. I mean, he's rated better than Trent Sherfield. Let's see here. But he didn't play with the Vikings until last season, I believe. Or no, this season. It'll be his first season. So he should have been a free agent acquisition if memory serves me correct. So that's the three that I'm going to go with. And quite honestly, that's the three highest scores that the Vikings have. So you've got Brandon Powell, 61.7. Addison, almost did it again, 68.6. And Jefferson, 91.1. So overall, their scores is 221.4. So the wide receiver room overall is a 221.4, with their number one wide receiver being Jefferson at 91.1. Let's hope the Packers review doesn't hurt as much as that one just did. That was tough. Get a little tongue twisted there. So what do you guys think about Minnesota this year? I guess that's my question for you on Minnesota is, do you think it's going to matter between McCarthy or Darnold? Do you think that it really matters what they do this season and the expected output from the Vikings this year? Do you think that there's any way, shape, or form that these Vikings can have a shot at being contenders at all this year? Now, I know, or I'm going to guess, the U of M lackeys that are in this stream right now are probably going to say, hell yeah. Yeah, especially with McCarthy back there. But if you look around the league at, all of the different analysis that's been done on McCarthy, it is a extremely mixed bag. And I would say that the majority of them are probably leaning that McCarthy needs a season, that he's just not ready yet. And I think I would be in the same boat. I think that, he just definitely needs a year to kind of get things underneath him and learned at a higher level. I think that McCarthy's going to be a good quarterback. I just feel like he's missing some components to his game. I mean, quite often we've seen, his upper body and his lower body just not working together as well as it should. I just want to make sure the depth chart here, because I had to pull everything over again this morning. So as far as depth chart here, we've got Justin Jefferson is the number one. Jordan Addison is the number two. You got Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield, Jalen Naylor. Oh, there's Lucky Jackson, Tristan Jackson, Thayer Thomas, Malik Knowles, Ty James, and Deshaun Jones. So interesting room. I do believe that the Vikings are going to end up somewhere in the middle to the end of the pack here. Let's move on to the Packers. So Green Bay Packers, they had a pretty successful season last year. The last 8 games or so of the year. And give me 1 second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Dog was going nuts. Had to figure out what was going on. So anyway, Packers had a good season last year towards the end of the season. We know that Jordan Love, the last 8 games or so really started to put it together. But was it enough? Is it enough for this year? Is he going to have a similar season here in 2024? I'm not so sure. I'm not as high on Jordan Love as some people are. I just don't believe that he proved enough to me last year that he's not going to come in and just make all the same mistakes that he did, in the first 8 games or so. But let's review the Green Bay Packers. Let's figure out where they're going to end up. And again, this is the PFF unbiased rankings, even though PFF is somewhat of a mess at times. We're at least going to utilize their traditional scores to figure out where these players should end up. So we'll kick it off here with the Green Bay Packers 2024 receiving core is marked by a mix of promising young talent and players looking to make significant strides. And here's an in-depth look at the key players from last season. Jalen Reed. Let me pull him up real quick. So Jaden Reed's stats from last year: 64 receptions, 793 yards, 8 TDs, 12.4 average. At 5'11", 187 pounds, coming from Michigan State. He was selected in the second round, pick 50 overall by the Packers. This was a great get by the Packers. Even though I didn't watch a ton of the Spartans last season, Jaden Reed is all over the place, and he is a playmaker. This is, in my opinion, this was a great pickup for them. Could end up being a steal for them from last season where they were able to get him. I do believe he could have been ranked a little bit higher had he been a little bit taller. But he's going to surprise some people just like he did last year and bounce out again here in 2024 to a good season. So the Packers' second-round pick in 2023, he does bring a lot of excitement into Green Bay. He's known for his explosive speed and playmaking ability. Reed has the potential to become a key contributor in this offense. While his rookie season will be, or was an adjustment period for him, he clearly proved that he can play at the highest level. His college performance from the year before suggested that he could quickly adapt to the NFL, and he did. So, dynamic element to the Packers offense, I believe, is Jaden Reed. He's going to be somebody to watch this season as a breakout player overall. He could eclipse 1,000 yards this year, and that all depends upon, what Jordan Love is going to do this season. But he did develop some great chemistry last season with Jordan Love. And I just believe the way that he plays, the way that he runs his routes, the guy knows what he's doing, and he does it at a high level. He's very clean in and out of his routes. And that made it a lot easier for Jordan Love to find him, whether it was in space or while he was covered. Reed always seemed to come down with the ball. Big time scrapper when it comes to, 50-50 balls too. Romeo Doubs. We'll do Romeo Doubs next. Jordan Love is he's the wild card for me. We just don't know what we're going to get out of Jordan Love just yet. Tale of two halves last year. I think that this season we're going to want to see more out of him. I mean, I personally don't want to see more out of him, but we're going to want to see more out of Jordan Love to start the season, to say, yup, the first 8 games were just his learning curve. And that's no longer the case, for Jordan Love. Clearly, I hope he shits the bed all season, but, this is the unbiased review, so I got to kind of stick with that. Romeo Doubs had a pretty solid season, though. Only 59 receptions, 674 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Showed glimpses of his potential as a potential number 1 wide receiver somewhere. At 6'2", 204, he's definitely a boundary X style of receiver. He was selected in round 4, pick 132 by the Packers in 2022. So, he's only got 2 seasons in the NFL. And if we look back at what he did in 2022, he was better overall, but he only played in 13 games as a rookie, 42 receptions, 67 targets, 425 yards, 10.1 average, 3 TDs. So, he was having a much better rookie season than he did sophomore season. And the reason why I say that is he, in 13 games, produced, those type of stats. So last year, I think that if he would have had those extra 4 games, he probably could have had a better season. Maybe they were kind of on par together. It goes close. TD wise, he was obviously targeted a little bit more in the red zone than he was the year prior. Dobbs is expected, though, to build upon 23 and 2022 to kind of work himself into being a consistent weapon for Jordan Love. Being the taller of the wide receivers in the group, he is someone that is that downfield stretcher, someone that you're looking for to, catch the balls in the boundary, and definitely the 50-50 balls in the end zone. Consistency will be key for Dobbs as he aims to really establish himself as a dependable second or third option at times in the passing game. But I do believe he's going to work himself into being that 1-2, look for Jordan Love, depending on who's in the game and at what time. And that's partly because you've got the next guy, Christian Watson. Christian Watson was extremely exciting to watch at times last year. There's just no undenying that. This kid has really turned into a pretty good wide receiver. Definitely was a standout on this team last year. I mean, he didn't have a ton of stats. 28 receptions, 422 yards. Long reception, though, 77, 5 TDs. So, I mean, it wasn't a crazy year, but he's still a standout wide receiver from the body of work that he puts in. His effort on the field is undeniable. The way that he goes about the game, I feel like there's more to this guy that we haven't seen yet. Take a look at his stats real quick here. So from 2022 to 23, he had a major drop off because he missed half the season. So by missing half the season, obviously you're going to have a down year as far as stat wise. But what he was able to do when he was in was putting him into that next caliber on this team to work himself into being that 1 or 2 option next to a Romeo Dobbs. I think between Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, and Christian Watson this season, it is going to be a dogfight between those 3 to really see who's going to emerge as the number 1 weapon or the 1-2 target for Jordan Love. Any one of them can be it. And I think that is a problem, because if all 3 of these guys can play at a high level, which all 3 of them can, they've already shown the ability to be able to do it. They all have big playability. Some may get into the end zone more than others, but you still need that, 0 to 20 guy, someone that's working the entire field. And when you get into the red zone, you might find different options in the red zone. But I think all 3 of these guys pose different threats, and they all can be a number 1 option for Jordan Love at any point in time in the game. That's going to be a problem for the league, to be honest with you. Now, thankfully, the Lions have doubled down on the cornerback room, the DB room overall. With that revamped defense, I think it's going to help us big time to defend, what the Packers are going to try to do this season. But all 3 of these guys have big play potential. Christian Watson, I mean, he has an amazing set of speed, athleticism, size, 6'4", 208. He is the tallest option next to Romeo Dobbs, and he's a big body, man. Selected round 2, pick number 34 in the second round of the 2022 NFL Draft out into North Dakota State, of all places. So they found this gem hiding in North Dakota State, of all places. Bo Melton is up next. Limited action, obviously, last season for the Packers. Let's take a look at Bo Melton. So he was taken round 7. Packers really went deep between 2022 and 2023 with wide receivers. But 2022, man, they selected at least 3 wide receivers in that draft. Round 7, pick 229 out of 2022's NFL Draft. He's 5'11", 189. So he's very similar size to what Jaden Reed is. Last season, 16 receptions, 218 yards, 1 reception. So this is a guy that's going to be fighting for like the 4th spot, 5th spot on this roster. And you have a couple of other players that kind of round out the back end of this roster. But let's take a look at their depth chart here. Again, depth charts coming to you from CBS Sports. When we look at their depth chart, you've got Christian Watson listed as the number 1, Romeo Doubs listed as the number 2, Jaden Reed the number 3. But they've added guys like Dontavian Wicks, obviously Bo Melton, Malik Heath, Samori Tor, Grant Dubois, Alex McGuff, Julian Hicks, and Dimitri Stanley. I'm not going to get into the last 5 guys on this roster. Clearly, it's between Bo Melton, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Malik Heath to make this team. But it's only the top 3 that we're really concerned about. And for that reason, it's Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed that are going to give NFL defenses a fit in 2024. Is it going to be the Lions? I just don't think so. But let's take a look at their PFF scores and where are they going to end up. So what do you guys think overall for the Packers? And I guess give me your ideas on Jordan Love. Is he somebody that you feel, the second half of the season really started to show who he is? Or do you still feel like maybe there's a lot that needs to be corrected there, and maybe overall he could be a wishy-washy type player in 2024? You don't know what you're going to get. It could be the Jordan Love of the last 8. It could be the Jordan Love of the first 8, and that's not a good situation to be in, obviously. But either way, I think that Jordan Love has a great arm. There's no denying that. He just needs to make smart decisions with what he does with the ball. I think that's what led him to get into some trouble last year. So the Packers, quite honestly, have one of the better wide receiving groups in the NFC North. From a depth, depth wise, right? They have guys at 1, 2, and 3 that are all pretty equal. Each one of them can do like the same thing as the rest of the guys. Doesn't matter if they're 6'4", 6'2", or 5'11". Every one of those guys can be a receiving threat at any time in any game for the Packers. And I think that is going to lend to Jordan Love having a good season if he himself can keep his head on his shoulders, pointing in the right direction. But Jaden Reed scored at a 73.3 last year. Like I said, these guys are all fairly equal. Dontavian Wicks, 77.7. He's actually ranked the 26th best receiver in the league right now, according to PFF. That's just PFF grade, though. And then you have Romeo Doubs, the 39th best receiver in the league right now. Again, according to PFF, 73.6. And then Christian Watson didn't have a great score because he missed a lot of time, but 59th out of 128 receivers, and he scored a 68.2. So 68.2 for Watson, Jaden Reed, 73.3, Romeo Doubs, 73.6, Dontavian Wicks, 77.8. So when I look at Dontavian Wicks, I mean, he did play in all, 18 games of last season. He is a big-time receiving threat. I probably shouldn't discount him. I probably should put him up there in the top 3, and I'm going to have to. 6'1", 206, drafted in 2023, round 5, 161st selection last year. Now, he didn't have, a game that was like crazy, off the Richter scale type of game, but I got to look at his snap count here. Snap count. Yeah, he did get plenty of snaps. So we're going to have to roll Dontavian Wicks as someone that could emerge as a heavy favorite for Jordan Love. I doubt it. He'll probably be the 4th receiver, maybe the 5th. But last season, he had 39 receptions, 581 yards, 14.9 average, 4 TDs. He got in 15 games last season. So he's definitely a big-time threat for the Green Bay Packers, and we're going to have to roll with his score. So overall, your number one wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers last year, Dontavian Wicks, 77.8. And then your bottom three, man, Christian Watson, I've got to use his score because he's a projected starter. Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, all three of those guys are the projected top three. So the top three score would be 68.2, 73.3, and 73.6, 215.1. And if you use Wick's number over, well, who would you go? I mean, Jaden Reed. I don't know who you would take him over. Any ideas from you guys? A little help here. Who would you take Dontavian Wicks over? I guess it would be definitely Bo Melton, Samurai Tor. I just think a healthy Christian Watson is your number one. And I think your Romeo Doubs is probably your number two. And I think your Jaden Reed is your number three. I don't think you could take Dontavian Wicks over any of those guys. But be that as it may, let's just say that we took him over Jaden Reed. So that'd be a 77.8, a 68.2, and a 73.6. So that would give the Packers a 219.6. So 215.1 to 219.6 is where they would be. And right now, compared to the Vikings, they are in second place. So second place to number one wide receiver and second place overall, because Justin Jefferson's number one ranking clearly sets them apart. Now, I went deep on the Bears, and we're going to talk about the Bears here coming up, but let me get into some of the chat here. Michael Lucchese, I think that's your last name. Lucchese. You're going to have to tell me. I know I've asked you how to pronounce your last name. So good morning. Thank you for joining the show. It's been struggle bus this morning. Not only did I lose power, but apparently my mouth doesn't want to work today. Brent DeWitt says, yep, developing JJ will be key. I think that JJ is going to have a long-term development plan here. I don't know if he's going to get to start. But Jordan Love is who we're talking about right now. Is he going to progress in season 2? Is he going to go back to where he was the last 8 games of the season? Or are we going to see more of the first, 8-9 games of Jordan Love where he was just inconsistent, throwing interceptions, bad ball placement, terrible footwork. He did not have, just look what the Lions did to him in week 4, I think it was. Completely dismantled him. You get Jordan Love rattled, he can't throw the ball well. And I don't believe that he's fast enough, to really have to worry about an outside threat. If you can contain him and get pressure on him, he cannot throw the ball well. Lou Keys. Okay, gotcha. Broski Bear prediction. The 4 NFC North teams all finish between 8-9 and 10-7. I don't like you now, Broski Bear. That's not cool. That's not cool. So you think the Lions are going to finish at number 1 at 10-7 out of the NFC North? I appreciate you putting the Lions at number 1 there at 10-7, but as long as we win the North, we're in. So I'm cool with that. Are you cool with that? I'm cool with that. I think the Lions will be 13-4. I think that's what I said a couple of months ago on one of the shows. That was my early pre-camp predictions. Preseason predictions was 13-4, I believe. Definitely better than 12-5. It's going to be tough to get to 13-4 with the way that some of these games are wrapping up to be real tough games this year. Tracy says, I'm not sold on Jordan right now. He still has a lot of work to do, but there is potential. I believe that. I'm good with that. J Mommy says, watch film being out on Love. Teams will have something to study. I believe that I believe that he will have a down year. Yeah, tape is kind of your worst enemy. It is. It's like you have a great season. Well, now you got great tape. And the minute you have great tape, Teams study you. When they study you, they find things about you that maybe aren't so good. And then, they accentuate that and they attack you based on the things that you do wrong. J Mommy says, I am constantly rooting for other teams to beat the teams that the Lions compete against or against teams that I just don't care for. I guess that's a good way to look at the season. Lions 15-3, according to J Mommy. 15-3. We got 18 games this year. Is that 14-3 maybe? Lions aren't winning the North, according to Broski Bear. If you don't get better in the offseason and you get worse, and the Lions didn't improve. What do you mean we didn't improve? Broski, did you fall off the wrong side of the bed and hit your head this morning? Tell me where we didn't get better. So the only player of note that we lost were two players. Jonah Jackson, Josh Reynolds. That's it. Who else did we lose? We didn't lose anybody. CJ Gardner didn't play. Played like crap when he was in. Not a loss. Anybody in the DB room that's gone, not a loss. So we're going to have probably a top 10 DB room overall. Our wide receiver room, I mean, if you include Sam Laporta in the conversation as receivers, which you could, I mean, those are your top two right there between Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you have Jameson Williams' emergence. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, who can catch the ball in the backfield. Hell, David Montgomery can catch the ball in the backfield. He just doesn't get a ton of options there. But we definitely improved big time. DJ Reader, one of the best defensive tackles in the league, is now a Lion. Sure, he's coming off an injury, but he'll be all right. We still have some depth behind him. But I'm not going to get into that whole tangent this morning. I think you would be the only one to think the Lions didn't improve. Matter of fact, the entire league thinks the Lions improved because for the first time in a long time, we are cracking top 10 lists from overall room perspective. So the wide receiver room or the defensive tackle room. I think our defensive line was ranked 4th overall to start the season. Last year, where were we ranked? 20th to start the season? Maybe. So, yeah, we definitely improved. I'll tell you how they improved tonight in Off the Cuff when you come back. How about that? We'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk about improvements tonight. Well, let's talk about the Bears since Broski Bear is in here. Let's talk about the Bears. So I went deep on the Bears today. Everyone was calling me a Packer lover last week for going heavy on the Packers. So I went heavy on the Bears today. How about that? So let's talk about the Bears. DJ Moore. 2023 stats. I've got to make sure I verify all these stats again. DJ Moore. So 96 receptions, 1,364 yards, 8 TDs, 4 rushes for 21 yards with 1 touchdown, 136 targets overall in 17 games. Now, the only thing to love about the Bears wide receivers in 2023 was DJ Moore. He was acquired in a trade of the number 1 pick. Now, Moore's impact in the passing game was pretty immediate and significant for the Bears last season. He had a career year with Chicago, setting career highs in catches, 96 yards, 1,364, and touchdowns, 8. Now, Moore did eclipse 100 receiving yards in 5 games this last season, including his first 200-yard game. I can't remember who that was up against. Was that up against the Chargers? I can't remember. So Moore's best game, I guess it was against the Commanders in Week 5, where he had a career high 230 yards on 8 catches and 3 touchdowns. He became the second Bears receiver to record at least 200 yards and 3 scores in a game. Now, regardless of who's under center in 2024, I don't think that there's any denying the fact that DJ Moore's a pretty damn good receiver. Will he be able to have success against the Lions in the new revamped secondary? I think that's going to be the biggest question. So if we were to look at his game-by-game snaps last year, against the Lions. So against the Lions, the first game, which would have been the November 19th game, he had 7 receptions, 9 targets, 96 yards, 1 TD. Now, if you look at his average, I would say that was right about average for him, maybe a little above average. So he had a pretty good game against the Lions when you look at the rest of his stats. But in the second game, he only was 6 for 10 for 68 yards. So overall, last season, DJ Moore had less than 150 yards on the Lions through 2 games. So when you do the average, only 75 yards on average against the Lions, and now you're going to go up against a much better secondary. Yeah, I don't think that DJ Moore is going to have a good season against the Lions. Just saying. But it is undeniable that he is clearly your number 1 wide receiver at this point. Darnell Mooney, 2023 stats, 31 receptions, 414 yards, 1 touchdown, 61 targets. Came in 15 games, by the way. So while Darnell Mooney has proven to be a viable option in the past, he had a pretty disappointing outing last year during what was a contract year in 2023. For whatever reason, Mooney wasn't on the same page with Justin Fields. Now it doesn't matter because Justin Fields isn't there. But he thrived. They thrived together, the previous season, though. And he didn't really factor into the offense a whole lot. Now, Mooney had his worst statistical season by far, catching only half of his targets and barely eclipsing 400-yard receiving mark on the season. Unlike Moore, though, there weren't many moments where Mooney's name was mentioned. Unless it had to do with the, surprise of how uninvolved he was in an offense, he just wasn't mentioned. So when Mooney had a chance to play hero on the final Hail Mary attempt versus the Browns, he couldn't haul the ball in, and that went off his lap, and then they lost the game. So it was the perfect encapsulation to what was a very disappointing season for Darnell Mooney. Let me take a look at something real quick here. As far as the Bears depth chart goes here in 2024, you have DJ Moore listed as your number 1, Keenan Allen listed as your number 2, Rome Odunze as your number 3, Tyler Scott, Velus Jones, Dante Pettis, DeAndre Carter, Colin Johnson, Nasimba Webster, Freddie Swain, and Peter LeBlanc. So it doesn't really matter this season because Mooney is no longer with the team. Yeah, we know that, Broski, but we're talking about last season versus this season. So with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen rounding out what should be your top 2, and Rome Odunze being the new addition to this team here in 2024, that does pose for an interesting shakeup to what could be a pretty solid wide receiver group this season. So let's touch on Keenan Allen next. So the Bears acquired 6-time Pro Bowler receiver Keenan Allen in a blockbuster trade from the Chargers in exchange for a 2024 4th-round pick, number 110 overall, and it was pending a physical, which obviously he passed. Now, Allen is 31 years old. He has spent his entire 11-year career with the Chargers, who selected him in the 3rd round of the 2013 draft out of California. Now, he's 6'2", 211 pounds. He appeared in 139 games with 139 starts. He's caught 904 passes for 10,530 yards and 59 touchdowns in his career. Allen was voted to 5 straight Pro Bowls from 2017 to 2021 and was chosen for a 6th time last season when he led the NFL with a career high and franchise record, 108 receptions, 1,243 yards, and 7 TDs. Despite missing the final 4 games of the season with a heel injury, what could have been for Keenan Allen last season had he played in the last 4 games? Last year, Allen became the first player in NFL history to catch at least 15 passes in 3 career games. He also became the first player to have at least 15 receptions and throw a touchdown pass in a game, accomplishing this feat in a 28-24 Week 3 win over the Vikings. when he established career highs with 18 receptions, 215 yards, and then tossed a 49-yard reception TD pass, to receiver Mike Williams. Now, Allen has caught at least 100 passes in 5 of the last 7 seasons, with 102 in 2017, 104 in 2019, 100 in 2020, 106 in 21, and 108 in 2023. Now, in addition to that, he has 6 1,000-yard campaigns. Last year, he became the fastest player in NFL history to surpass 900 receptions. And he did it in his 139th career game. What does it mean for the Bears? Because he didn't play for the Bears last season. Well, I guess here's what it means to me. Is Herbert a better quarterback right now than what... Is Herbert a better quarterback right now than what Caleb Williams will be entering the season? That's my biggest question. Is Herbert a better quarterback right now than what Caleb Williams will be entering his first season? And I think the answer is undeniably yes. I think that Justin Herbert is a much better quarterback than Caleb Williams is now or ever will be. But that is my personal opinion. My unbiased opinion says this. Just look at what rookies tend to do, especially first round picks overall over the last 20 seasons. I've done the work. We've talked about it on this channel many times. CJ Stroud last season was the anomaly. It just doesn't happen. It's few and far between that you see a rookie quarterback do anything in the first 2.5 years. Lamar Jackson, I think, made the playoffs his rookie year. That's been about it. I mean, outside of CJ Stroud last year, I think they're the only two to make the playoffs as a rookie since 2016. There might have been one other player, but I think that's it. So, I mean, the maths here. It works. I don't think that Caleb Williams, he would have to be a complete anomaly this year, but I don't think that Caleb Williams is going to do anything in 2024 that even comes close to what any other quarterback in the top 15 of the league is able to do. And for that reason, Keenan Allen is going to quickly find out that he's not getting the ball thrown to him by Herbert, who has a cannon for an arm, who makes good decisions, who moves well in and outside of the pocket, and had a pretty decent offensive line. Caleb Williams doesn't. So I don't see where Keenan Allen is. I mean, he's a great wide receiver. He definitely can be a huge threat. But will it happen with the quarterback? That's the question. So next up, we have Rome Odunze. Now, I love Rome. I think that he's going to be one of the best wide receivers out of this draft. Clearly, not just because of where he was picked, but he is proven a proven commodity here. He's going to be an excellent wide receiver as long as he gets on the same page with Caleb Williams. Now, we know the Bears selected the Washington wide receiver at the 9th overall pick this last draft in 2024. Brings in another big body, 6'3", 215 pounds, to the Chicago Bears depth chart following a 4-year college career and where he caught 214 passes, 3,272 yards with 24 touchdowns, and also rushed 10 times for 40 yards with 2 touchdowns in 40 games, 29 starts. Now, as a senior, Rome Odunze set school records with 1,640 receiving yards, which led the nation in 2023 and ranks 3rd most in Pac-12 history. His 92 receptions were 2nd most in UW history. That's University of Washington. Just 2 shy of the Reggie Williams record. That's nuts to me. Just 2 shy. So Odunze was just the 2nd receiver in school history to record multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons, reaching that mark in 2022 and 2023. During his time at Washington, the Huskies combined for a total 32-12 record. They appeared in 3 bowl games, including the 24 College Football Playoff National Championship. Odunze was a consensus first-team All-American. Pro Football Focus, CBS, and The Athletic. He also earned first-team All-Pac-12 honors. He was one of 4 captains voted by the team and notched 10 100-yard games. Odunze won the Offensive Skill Player of the Year award at the team's postseason banquet. Odunze also played in 12 of 13 games with 8 starts as a junior. He recorded 75 catches, 1,145 yards with 7 touchdowns, leading the team in receiving yards and ranking second in receptions. He also led the Pac-12 in receiving yards and was second in receptions per game. His 1,145 yards were the fifth most in a single season in school history, and his 75 receptions were 7th. Odunze won the most outstanding offensive skill player award at the team's banquet, like I already said, but he also played in all 4 games that was in a shortened 2020 season. So, look, this guy is an absolute monster, in my opinion. Rome Odunze is going to set this NFL ablaze. It's just, when is he going to be able to do it? Is it going to happen in year 1? Well, he's going to be slotted behind Keenan Allen. He's going to be slotted behind Darnell Mooney. So that's probably going to give him some limited opportunity. But when Rome Odunze is targeted and he catches the ball, this is where you got to watch out. Rome Odunze can be a phenomenal athlete at times. I mean, he shows his speed, his size, his ability. Whether it's lateral, short distance, it doesn't matter. Whatever Rome has done, he's done it at a high level. He just has to have a complementary quarterback, and that's the ticket here. Are they going to be able to gel early? We could see where Caleb just hitches his wagon to Rome, and maybe they're the 1-2 punch to start the season, and Darnell Mooney and Keenan Allen get less targets because he's trying to force the ball to Rome Odunze. I hope Caleb does that, because that'll be a huge mistake. But we'll see what happens. I do like Rome's ability. It's going to be tough to give these guys a score because, well, Rome's an incoming freshman to the NFL. But if we were to look at the Bears overall, you have DJ Moore, who was rated the 10th. He was rated the 10th wide receiver in the league last season with an 89.3. And then you have Darnell Mooney. I'm sorry, Darnell Mooney. Where's your score? Darnell Mooney. I'm sorry. So you got DJ Moore with the score of 89.3. Tyler Scott, I mean, he just hasn't done enough. He did have enough snap counts. But 115th out of 128th is where he's ranked. He had a 52.7. And then Keenan Allen, I mean, he's a transplant. He's clearly not going to do the same. But, to put him in as a, top 2 1-2 punch here, you got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen as the top 2 wide receivers for the Bears to start this season. Now, what I did here is I did also average, just like I've done for all the other, the other reviews, I did average all of the rookies. And let me pull that up here. So the receivers that I averaged would be Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, Demario Douglas, and all 7 of them, I believe there's 7 of them there, would have led to a score for a rookie of a 76.26, which is a huge score. It's kind of unfair, but it is what it is. I mean, if you look at, the top wide receivers that actually had some snaps, where they were selected, I mean, yeah, you could make the argument that probably shouldn't take a couple of them, but those are the guys that I scored to kind of give us an average, to give Rome Odunze a score. And so for that reason, we're going to go with the sliding scale factor of 66.26. We're going to drop it by 10 points. So their top 3 would be an 89.3, 86.3, and the 66.26. Their top two, 89.3 and 86.3, is Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. So they're clearly going to be in first place to start the season on paper. Top two gives them a score of 175.6. And top three gives them a score 241.86. No one is going to come close to that. Guaranteed. No one is going to come close to that. If we look back at the Packers, we copy theirs. Grab the Bears scores. See, it's really hard to do some of this too because you got, when you have transplants that are coming in, like a Keenan Allen who had a crazy good score coming from another team. It kind of throws everything off a little bit, but it is what it is, right? That's why this is just the unbiased review of PFF and where these players are ranked right now. And let's see where they're going to be ranked, at the end of the season. So we do the top one and then the top three overall. So as far as the Packers went, we went Tavian Wicks with their number one overall score, but I couldn't do that. So we had to go Christian Watson because we know he's not the number one. So that wouldn't even be fair. We know he's not the number one. To start the season, I'm going to have to go with DJ Moore. Obviously, as the Bears' number one wide receiver at an 89.3. I think he's an 89.3. Yeah, 89.3. Now, overall, he's not going to beat out like Justin Jefferson, but when you combine the overall team and their as their top three, then yeah, that's where things start to add up in the Bears' favor. The good news is we know it's not going to finish that way. But even if it does, it does. The only thing that we care about as Lions fans at the end of the day is not who's winning stat war. We care about who's got the most wins and losses at the end of the season, who's in the playoffs and who's not. That's what we care about. Finally, I say that like we've been caring about that. No, we just started caring because we finally arrived, right? So right now, before I get into the Lions, your score would be this. Justin Jefferson is the number one wide receiver in the NFC North so far, 91.1. DJ Moore is your second leading receiver here at, DJ Moore would be your second receiver at an 89.3. Let me just double check that one more time. I can't give it to Allen. He wasn't on the team last year. All right, DJ Moore, 89.3. Keenan Allen, 86.3. And then your third receiver is going to be the Packers. It's really Tavian Wicks, but we know that Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs is going to be your number one. So I'm going to give it to Romeo Doubs. I'm not going to give it to Christian Watson. And that'll be a 73.6. So wide receiver room for the Packers obviously is a bit suspect. And are we doing top three or top four? Let me go back. Bears. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, Tyler Scott. All right, give me 1 second here, and then we're going to go to the Lions. While I put together these numbers, we'll take a quick sponsor break here. Be right back. Okay, starting to make some sense of this here. So let's move on to the Detroit Lions. And of course, as we do the Lions this morning, I always like to shout out Tim Twentyman because he does a great job over there for the Detroit Lions. And matter of fact, he did put out a receiver review. So let me open up his review. Let's see what he has to say about the Detroit Lions. So this was put out February 5th, 2024. And then we also have the updated one. So we're going to do the positional breakdown wide receiver by Tim Twentyman, taking a look at the Lions from last season. So the Lions were one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL this last season. Their pass game was a big reason why. Detroit finished second in the NFL in net passing and third in total yards. Led by third-year wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit's receiving core was one of the most consistent and productive in the NFL. Detroit led the NFL with a contested catch percentage of 53.4, producing 39 catches on 73 contested targets. They were third in completions of 20-plus yards. They were second in passing first downs of 228 and third in yards per play at 5.9. St. Brown had a monster season with over 100 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He earned his first All-Pro nod and is considered among the best in the NFL at only 24 years old. Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond were obviously solid all season. Some of you would say that Josh Reynolds was the reason why the Lions lost the NFC title game, and I will tell you, I extremely or wholeheartedly disagree. There were too many things that happened in that game. Was Josh Reynolds part of it? Sure. But so was Jahmyr Gibbs. So was Dan Campbell. I mean, everybody had a hand in that loss. It wasn't just one player. I would have loved to have seen Josh Reynolds come back and kind of rerun this thing back all over again. But this is going to give the Lions an opportunity to see what else, is there for them with Jameson Williams, who has yet to break out. Now, the bad, according to Tim Twentyman, is, as we saw in the NFC Championship game, drops were an issue for this group. Detroit's drop percentage of 5.6 on 432 catchable passes ranked 22nd in the NFL. So my question on this, without looking up the stat, is that 26 best or 26 worst? Because if you look at it from the worst perspective, that would mean that the Lions ranked in the top 10 worst teams with drops in 2023. If it's the best perspective, that would mean that the Lions were a, 22nd ranked, which means that they're better than 21 other teams, with drops last season. One key stat that Tim Twentyman wanted to point out is that the Lions are really dangerous when they get their playmakers in space. That goes not only for St. Brown and Williams, but the receiving core, from the receiving core, but also tight end Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is really good at scheming players open in space, and they know what to do with it when they get it. Detroit's 2,211 yards after the catch this season ranked 5th in the NFL. Obviously, the MVP from last season was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tim Twentyman has the same. It was a breakout season for St. Brown. He recorded the most 100-yard receiving games among all players in the league and ranked 2nd in receptions, 3rd in yards with 1,515, and 1st in touchdowns. 3rd in first downs, 75. 1st in yards after the catch, 677. He's a yak monster. Straight up, he's a yak monster. And 5th in 15-plus yard receptions with 35. Over his first 3 seasons, NFL's St. Brown is 3rd in NFL history in receptions, 315, and 8th in receiving yards, 3,588. Most Improved award went to Jameson Williams last year. By the end of the year, Williams was an impact player. He was averaging over 40 snaps per game. He rushed for a 42-yard touchdown and caught a touchdown in the NFC Championship game. So we need to see much more of the same this year, right? So let's take a look at this year. What does Tim Twentyman have for the Detroit Lions? Well, on the roster, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Antoine Green, Darius Fountain, Maurice Alexander, Traquan Smith, Tom Kennedy, Isaiah Williams, Jalon Calhoun, and Caden Davis. So, no, T. Higgins is not coming to the Detroit Lions. The Lions have already shut the door on accepting any new applications for employment in the wide receiver room. They have spoken to this numerous times. It has been in the news over the last couple of weeks from many different writers that the Lions are doing nothing with the wide receiver room at this point. They feel like they have what it takes to win already on this roster. Now, that doesn't mean when you have an injury that something couldn't change. It clearly could. But right now, don't be looking for players like T. Higgins or anybody else to join this roster. Absolutely impossible to afford multiple high-price, free agents, especially with what it would cost to get T. Higgins, not only from a cap perspective, but also, some sort of a trade asset, losing draft picks. Just not going to happen. Lions aren't pulling any punches with that. They're not being secretive with any of this. So where do we see this year's competition? Who do we see making the roster? So as far as my bias portion to this, who do I see making the roster? You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams clearly is a 1-2 punch. Khalif Raymond someone who's been around for a while. I think this could be his last year on the team. Donovan Peoples-Jones, very intriguing prospect, needs to take a huge step forward this year. I think he can. I think he can get back to where he was in 2022. Let's just see it happen. Antoine Green, last year's rookie, late round pick. I think he was 6th or 7th round pick. He needs to have an emergence this year. The guy that we keep forgetting about, though, Traquan Smith. So where is he going to fit into this year's roster? Where is he going to get snaps from? Whose job is he going to take? All of that is dependent upon what happens in this year's training camp. But we cannot forget about Traquan Smith. He has played at a high level at times in the NFL. He just needs an opportunity, and I think that he's going to have an opportunity this season going through a full off season with Jared Goff, which is the key. Late season additions just don't work for the Lions, and I think that's why you don't see a lot of trades like a T. Higgins or something like that post training camp. You're not going to see a lot of additions to this roster for impact post training camp because Jared Goff and Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell know all too well that you have to be on this roster throughout training camp to even have an opportunity to do something for this team because it takes time to develop. So you need that relationship. So where are we going here? Look, I think that the Lions have an amazing cast of characters. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the number one wide receiver in the NFC North, not just from a statistic standpoint, but the relationship standpoint between him and Goff. I don't think that there's a better relationship between receiver and quarterback in the NFC North. That's where it kind of falls off to me because Jameson Williams has a lot to prove. I just don't feel as confident about the Lions' second option when I look around the other rosters. For instance, I mean, you've got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen for the Chicago Bears. That is a phenomenal 1-2 punch. Keenan Allen's done it at a high level for a long time, but he's also only done it with one quarterback, which we could see as a huge issue for him this season. He may not gel with Caleb Williams as expected. When you look at the Packers, you're talking Watson, Reed, let me pull it back up here. Watson, Reed. Can't speak today, man. Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs. I mean, you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch there. All guys that have been on the roster more than one season. No incoming, rookies this season that are really fighting for a top spot. So you've got good continuity there. So past your top wide receiver, the Packers are set, with guys that have been around here for a minute. And definitely have been playing with Jordan Love for a while because he's been on the roster for a while. Now things kind of get weird in Minnesota because they've got 2 new quarterbacks this year. But between Justin Jefferson and Addison and Powell, guys that have been on this team for a minute, there's good continuity between them. Jalen Naylor's, pretty good receiver. He just got to get more opportunity. So I would say that when I look at the top rosters in the league from a continuity perspective, Packers are number 1. Bears, Lions, and Vikings are kind of all in the same group. Like, I feel like none of us are really that confident in what our second option can do because maybe they just haven't done it yet or they haven't done it with this team yet. Does that make sense? That's kind of where I'm going with it. But overall here, let me get back to Tim Twentyman's overview. So he notes the best competition is the final roster spots. St. Brown, Williams, Raymond, and Peoples-Jones are the top 4 heading into training camp. I would agree with that. Raymond and Peoples-Jones expect to take on bigger roles with Reynolds now in Denver. The Lions kept 5 receivers on the initial 53-man roster out of training camp last season, and what will be fun and interesting to watch over the course of camp is the players that emerge in the final spots. Well, according to him, that would mean that we have 1 final spot. If he thinks that we're going to keep 5, then that means we've only got 1 final spot, not final spots. The coaches seem pretty excited about the gains of Green, which would be our 5th guy, which, again, I would agree with. He has made some significant jumps or development in his development this year. His speed and deep ball threat could be a good complement to Williams. He just needed the game to slow down a bit for him, and it looks to be the case heading into camp. Another player to kind of keep your eye on is Darius Fountain. He had a really nice spring and offers a little bit of a bigger frame at 6'2", 210 pounds. The question is, can Alexander Kennedy or the undrafted rookie Williams do enough in camp and in the preseason to earn a spot? The coaches know Smith well from their time in New Orleans. Could he impress is the question. It will be a fun competition to watch develop. So here's the issue with the Lions. We just don't know. It is wide open right now. But on the surface of this, when you take the face value of what the Lions are presenting this season, someone's going to have to eat up Reynolds' targets, and they're going to have to be able to produce at a high level, because when Reynolds caught the ball, not only did he catch it typically for a first down with bigger yardage, but he was always consistent. He seemed to always be in the right position at the right time to make a play for the Lions when they needed it most. Obviously, I'm extremely excited about St. Brown. I don't need to go into a ton on the Lions, as we know our Lions well. And I think that Jameson Williams broke out a little bit last season. I think he started to gain a lot more confidence with, and momentum as the season kind of wore on. Jameson Williams needs to jump out in 2024 the way he left 2023. Big part of the NFC title game at the very beginning of that game, got in the end zone twice. He needs to remember that. And he needs to walk into the season saying, I can fight for number one balls. And even though it's going to be a big competition between him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, to get the most, reps, if you will, I just don't see where, obviously, them on the field together consistently, but I mean balls thrown at them. I just don't see where Jameson Williams has done enough to really command that he's the number two. I mean, he's the number two because he's the number two. But would you say that Jameson Williams is a better receiver than what Josh Reynolds has left behind? I don't know that I can say that yet. And I think that, Antoine Green is very sneaky. He could emerge quickly. Traquan Smith could jump out of the box and really impress you. I just don't feel like the Lions are going to keep 5 wide receivers. I think they're going to keep 6. They could even push to 7. That would be crazy. Some teams have done it. But when you have a bunch of unanswered questions at a position, sometimes it's not the best 53 you need to keep. It's the only 53 because you've got unanswered questions. And you hate to lose those players because once you lose them and they're gone, you're not going to get them back. It's not like you can stash all these players on the on the practice squad and keep that many wide receivers. It's just unheard of. So let's look at some scores here for the Lions. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's clearly the number one. And then you got Jameson Williams. And then after that, it's kind of a mystery, isn't it? Kind of a mystery, and that's a little scary for me to think that we just don't have a deep room. I mean, we have a deep room, but we just don't have, the guys aren't sorted yet. We just don't know who's going to do what, who's going to be who. Let me pull up their information. All right, so from a Lions roster perspective, I mean, St. Brown had an amazing year, 91.2. That was his rank by PFF. That gives him the number one overall wide receiver in the NFC North with that score. And then behind him, you have Khalif Raymond, who was in a limited amount of snaps last year, but he made it. Right at the cutoff there, he had 348 snaps, so he's 2 shy. But I think it's close enough. And then you have Jameson Williams and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Jameson Williams obviously is going to be slotted in as your number 2. Raymond didn't do squat last season. as far as stats. Like he didn't do anything. Now, obviously, he was battling some injury, but he had a pretty down year. Donovan Peoples-Jones actually got into 522 snaps on the season. And that's nuts to me because I don't even remember him being out there that often. He only hauled in 281 receiving yards. No runs to speak of. No, I'm sorry. He got in 281 receiving snaps, 5 pass blocking snaps, 236 run blocking snaps for a total of 522 snaps. Jamison Williams got in at 577 snaps. Khalif Raymond, 348. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1,198 snaps overall. So it's going to be an interesting year seeing how the Lions are missing, a really big component from last season being Josh Reynolds. Can Antoine Green take a big step forward? That is going to be the question. Antoine Green was great in run blocking last season, but he only saw 116 snaps all season long. So there's your top 4 for the Lions. It is Amon-Ra St. Brown, 91.2. Khalif Raymond, 75.4. Jamison Williams, 62.9. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, 52.7. All right, so let's tally him up. Here we go. NFC North. Winners and losers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is your number 1 wide receiver in the NFC North. Justin, I don't think that was any surprise. I think it's a hell of a competition between him and Justin Jefferson, but he is your second best wide receiver in the NFC North. When we look at the Bears, DJ Moore, 89.3, is your third best wide receiver in the NFC North. And then as far as your fourth, you might not even get outside of the Bears. So Keenan Allen incoming at 86.3. If we look at the Vikings or the Packers, there's nobody that even comes close. The Packers don't have anybody higher than a 77.8. So your fourth best wide receiver in the league this season for the NFC North is Keenan Allen. Now, this is on paper. This is on paper right now because Keenan Allen still has to come in and develop a relationship with Caleb Williams. Or should I say Caleb Williams needs to develop a relationship with everybody else. So let's take a look at overall rooms. Where do these rooms rank? Top 4 scores in the NFC North. 91.2 for the Lions, 62.9. The Lions are 282.2 points overall. The Bears are 294.56. The Vikings, or I'm sorry, the Packers $292.9. The Packers just have a really intriguing set there. I mean, all 4 guys are like neck and neck as far as scores. Whereas some of these other teams, you got one guy that scored really high and then everybody else just kind of filters in and drops off the list, a little bit. Scores are everywhere. As far as the Vikings, I'm missing one person. So Vikings got Justin Jefferson, 91.9. Brandon Powell, 61.7. Trent Sherfield, 51.1. And Jordan Addison, 68.6. 273.3. So that puts them in fourth place. So it's unfortunate the Lions are starting the season in third place as far as the overall room. The overall room score is a 282.2 for the Lions, 273.3 for the Vikings. They are third and fourth. The Bears are the number one overall room, 294.56. And the Packers at 292.9 start off the season in second place. But it's undeniable that the Lions and the Vikings have the two best wide receivers in the league right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown grades out first with a 91.2. Justin Jefferson grades out second with a 91.1. DJ Moore grades out third, I believe, with 89.3. And then Keenan Allen, 86.3. So that's it for your NFC North receiver. I apologize about today was a bad day. Mondays suck. But today was a bad review day. I apologize. We kind of got through it a little hitchy there. This is what happens when I lose power. And, you know, it didn't matter if I got up at 5 a.m. Putting it all back together just kind of sucks doing it last minute. But that's what it is. It is what it is. We'll do a better one tomorrow. I'm not sure who I'm going to do yet. I'll write it up tonight. Yeah, it is insane, Broski Bear, that he grades out higher. But, hey, that's BFF, man. You got to go by what their traditional scores are. And that's all we're using here is traditional scores. So, you know, it's targets, it's catches, it's yak, it's, you know, catchable versus non-catchable, it's drops, it's explosives. I think the big detractor for Justin Jefferson, honestly, I was surprised to see that he finished that high, but he missed a lot of games. So I think that when you look at it on its face value, Amon-Ra had a much better season because he played in, you know, every game except one, I think, last year. You know, almost 1,200 snaps, and he was able to maintain a 91.2, whereas Justin Jefferson missed like 7 games. So when you have a lower amount of games, and yet you have a couple of good games, statistics-wise, well, that's going to highly throw off, you know, your scoring because it's going to artificially pump up the scoring. So anyway, I hate to finish the day off on a somber bit of news, but man, what happened over the weekend in our country, and I hate to mix politics and sports, and I just don't, I won't. But that kind of stuff, man, like this country's heading in a rough place, has been for a minute. We thrive on sports to kind of drown out the garbage. And that's why this game, I think, is so important to so many people, is because there's so much negativity in the world. And there's so much crap happening around us that we have no control over. But what happened this weekend? Now, I'm not for or against either, you know, party here or anything, but an attempt on a former president in the United States, if that's what it truly was. We're in incredible times right now, and I don't mean that in a good sense of the word here. So to all of you that are watching or listening, man, try to be a breath of fresh air. Try to be a bit of positivity somewhere, because if we continue to allow, you know, the things that are happening right now happen, we may not have football. We may not have anything. So take a long, hard look in the mirror, man, and tell yourself, what do you want for yourself and your kids' kids, and your kids' kids beyond them? If we keep going in the direction we're going, we may not even get to another generation. It's a pretty sad place, but like I said, I'm not going to involve the politics side of it. I just wanted from the heart, man, like this anytime somebody dies and, you know, life is taken or potentially taken, life is bigger than football, and sports are a good outlet and a good release, but we've got to be able to maintain it and keep it. And that's where we have to be smarter about the choices that we make and the things that we do in life. So very rough to see. I'm sure a lot of you guys were shaken up by it. I was thinking, man, here we go. Something bad's going to happen. It already happened, but something even worse is going to happen. Hope not, because we're ready for football, man. We're ready to have good times ahead and not butt heads again, in this whole political environment. Can't stand it. So let's hope, thoughts, wishes, prayers, obviously, to the former president and current president, and to the staff, man. I mean, you gotta keep these guys protected no matter what. Not acceptable. Not acceptable at all. I don't care who you vote for. It's just not acceptable. Anyway, that's it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you guys sticking around this morning. We'll get everything, scheduled tonight. I'm off to go get another heart echo, so that's my day. I guess I better eat something real quick before I'm not allowed to eat, right? All right, you guys have a great day. Go One Pride, go Detroit Lions. We'll see you tomorrow morning, the next Unbiased Review and Lions Notes, News and Rumors. You guys take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.